You have come to the right place. And today we got a review for Tomahawk, Tonic, Immobility. They haven't released an album in many years, so I guess this is kind of their COVID comeback album of sorts. Now this has Mike Patton as the lead vocalist, and I gotta say Mike Patton has always been one of my absolute favorites. I've really enjoyed his work with Faith No More, of course, Mr. Bungle, Peeping Tom, Fantomas, Dead Cross, Nevermen. I mean, he's got so many different groups. They're all awesome. So I was ecstatic to hear a new Tomahawk record because I loved their first album so much, and I love Anonymous a lot as well. Just very out there, very experimental, of course, as always, for Mike Patton. So I was just really excited to hear what we were going to get from Tomahawk this time around. So let's get into the review, guys. So it starts off with a song called Shh. This song is pretty reminiscent of some stuff off their first album, mainly Flashback and Malocchio. It's chaotic, it's experimental, as usual. I found the instrumentals on this one to be a little simple, maybe even a little too simple. But in the end, it kind of adds to how out there and how unique Patton's vocals are on this track, especially towards the end. Nothing I was completely blown away by, but it wasn't bad either. Then we get into track number 2. It's called Valentine's Shine. It's a bit more straightforward for a Tomahawk track. Patton's vocals remind me of his vocals on Faith No More's Cuckoo for Kaka, which is one of his most eclectic performances throughout all his discography, in my opinion. Yeah, it kind of reminded me of his vocals on that track. And of course, all Mike Patton's stuff is pretty out there, but this track didn't impress me all that much. A bit of a lackluster track, even for Tomahawk. I just didn't find it to be anything new or all that interesting. So a little bit of a disappointing track here. Then we got track number 3. It's called Predators and Scavengers. The vocals remind me once more of a song off their first album called 101 North, with kind of how it sounds like he's singing down like an empty hallway or something. And then later in the song it switches to more unintelligible yelling. So that was fun. Now don't get me wrong, I love it when Mike Patton gets weird, but this chorus kind of sounds just like the last 2 songs already. I mean, the last 2 songs have had the same chorus as this song. Just nothing new, nothing unexpected. Just at this point in the album, I was not blown away by anything yet. It really didn't even capture my interest all that well up to this point. But then we got track number 4. It's called Doomsday Fatigue. I'm 99% sure that this song is about COVID lockdown and restrictions, especially since one of the lyrics is COVID smile. It's oddly one of the more melodic tracks on the album, very reminiscent once again of their first album's sound. Overall, it's an enjoyable track with some decent writing. It doesn't overstay its welcome. This track impressed me slightly. I was at least captured by it. It was a good track. Track number 5, Business Casual. Of course, this was the first song any of us had heard off their new album. Yeah, just in all honesty, I was not blown away by this song the first time I heard it. Especially not the second time I heard it on another listen of the album. Just you got lyrics that are saying gobbledygook, and then you got more unintelligible yelling and screaming. Nothing that really captured my interest all that well. It's lacking on every front, in my opinion. Just all instruments, his vocals, nothing new, nothing special. The only part of the song I actually enjoyed was the bass in the opening. That kind of carries throughout the song. That bass was pretty. And the lyrics are just kind of odd. Off kilter, and like I said, just the same. It's got the same recycled chorus from, at this point, Valentine's Shine and Predators and Scavengers. It's the same chorus. It's just recycled. So that was pretty disappointing. And just at this stage, it's getting old. We're about halfway through the album. It's old at this point. Then we got track number 6, Tattoo Zero. No. Just no. The only good things I can say about this song, it's got some decent guitar parts and some nice drums about halfway through the song. I guess it's more of a bit of a prog sound on this track. Other than that, the same chorus gets recycled once again for like the 5th time already on the album. Lyrics are horrendous. Everything else sucks. beyond that. Song number 7, Fatback. Boring and predictable. Once again, the vocals, drums, guitars, basically everything. It's just kind of just nothing new, nothing all that, that's going to pique your interest all that much. It's a recycled chorus again for what, the 6th time now? We've had the same chorus just where he's just yelling his head off, and it's just kind of going along to the beat slightly. Nothing new, and if you know Mike Patton at all, you know that this is really nothing special for him. I mean, of course, he's always out there, but this is just nothing new. Nothing that he's really venturing to be experimental with, Nothing he hasn't done in the past. Track number 8, called Howley. I'm going to be honest, this song did absolutely nothing for me. I mean, this is a big fat goose egg for me. Just completely boring. It just blended right into the background. Just unintelligible yelling as well. Bland instrumental. Yeah, this really just blended right into the background. Track number 9, Eureka. This is more of an instrumental type track. It's got more of an ambient sound to it. It's got some droning guitars, some nice drum work. And this is a track I actually really enjoyed. It was just no complaints here. It was just like a nice little reprieve, and it was a welcomed little reprieve as well. It just kind of cleanses the palate, so to speak. To be honest, Eureka, one of my favorite tracks on the album. Track 10, Sidewinder. This is a slower, chilled out vibe with Patton's best vocals by far on the album. It sounds like he's actually trying on this track to sing well, rather than just yelling his head off. And at least that's for like the first third of the song. Then it kind of switches up into something a little more heavy, angry, but then it quickly switches back into the good part. So thankfully we're not forced to endure another recycled chorus on this one. And it's really, this track Sidewinder, it's really one of the better tracks on the whole album, in my honest opinion. Alright, next track, Recoil. Here we go. It's one of the few tracks on the album that scratches that itch. A lot of us Tomahawk fans that have been fans for years and years and years, like me, it's like we've just been looking for something that just gives us that burst of energy that isn't recycled sounding. And this is that track, in my opinion, Recoil. Of course, you still got Mike Patton's vocal weirdness, but also really nice instrumentation and just really good writing all around to accompany those vocals. Really, my only complaint on this one is that it wasn't longer, but at least it didn't overstay its welcome. Really one of the more satisfying listens on the whole album. Just like I said, it doesn't recycle anything. And overall, it's just not annoying, to be honest. So definitely in my top songs of the album. Okay, the final track, Dog Eat Dog. It's got repetitive lyrics all throughout. I mean, seriously, go look up the lyrics and just see for yourself. This is like a Meghan Trainor song in terms of lyrics. Just lame. And overall, I just really dislike this track. And as an end to the album, it didn't even fit. This is like a song you'd put on the early part of the album, in my opinion. Just because towards the end of the album, we're actually getting somewhere decent, and then we get this one that's just kind of nothing good. So the first 3/4 of the album were really lackluster, really bland, and then towards the end, the last fourth, we get some decent stuff, and then we get Dog Eat Dog, which just kind of leaves a sour taste, at least in my mouth. This is just my opinion, of course. So overall, in conclusion, this hasn't been a very long review just because there's nothing much to talk about this album. I just did not like it that much. Just overall, Tomahawk seemed to play it really, really safe on this one. Not really venturing outside of their comfort zone like I would have expected. For such a long hiatus, you'd think they would have moved on to a kind of a more different, even more experimental sound. But they haven't grown. As a matter of fact, it sounds like they've regressed. I wish they would have expanded their sound like they did on their album Anonymous, where they did a bunch of, like Native American inspired instrumentals, very tribal. Just the results of them not venturing to do anything new here. We get a relatively mind-numbing album, slightly annoying, actually pretty annoying, and overly stripped down, almost to the point where it just sounds deconstructed. Like they took their formula and deconstructed it and just so bare bones. And I get that they were kind of going for that raw sound to it, but it just doesn't sound good. It really just doesn't. On a lot of tracks. With that being said, my favorite songs on the album, which I think are the best songs, are Sidewinder, Doomsday Fatigue, Eureka, and Recoil. Those four are at least passable in my book. Recoil is probably my favorite track on the whole album. So besides these tracks, this was I guess a stylistically unpolished, I don't know why, repetitive, pretty agitating, mild snore fest. That's really nothing new from the band. Just really disappointment to me. Out of 20 points, I'm inclined to give this a 5. A 5 out of 20. That's probably the best I'd be willing to give it. By far the weakest Tomahawk album to date. I kind of thought Oddfellows wasn't all that experimental, but at least had some, elements that showed they were moving slightly forward in their music. This is just like taking 3 steps back, almost back to their first album, but then taking that sound and just deconstructing it to a point where it's borderline unenjoyable for me. This is just my opinion. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment below. Tell me why you enjoyed it. I'm more than willing to listen to what you think. And also, what albums should I be reviewing next? So I got some more slated for the future. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Feu Chatterton for their latest album, Palais d'Argile. Really awesome album. I wish I would have reviewed it. I saw the Needle Drop actually reviewed it. I'm like, dang, I should have reviewed it because I heard it before he did. Yes, I am that hipster. So I wish I would have reviewed it before it would have looked like I'm hopping on the bandwagon. So yeah, really awesome album. Check it out if you can. That album for me easily would have been probably a 16 out of 20. Really solid album. Then also, I did film a review for Raw's new album called Intercorrupted, but I decided not to upload it simply because I didn't want to be a jerk that spreads negativity, because my review of that album was very negative. I gave it a 2.5 out of 20. Really did not enjoy it at all. The only good tracks on it were Jezebel, and also Blind to the Light was a good track, I thought. Other than that, it was all so boring. Really my most disappointing album so far this year, which I'll probably at the end of the year I'll be doing like a top 10 most disappointing albums of this year. Then the top 10 best albums probably. Best of what do you want to see me review next? Is there anything new coming out I should be aware of? Let me know. You have come to the right place. You are now leaving the right place. Stay safe out there.